down, what are you waiting for? You idiot! Come on! Let's start the show already, come on!
Alright, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, welcome back to FPS in 60 seconds. That's right, after an accidental hiatus, we return to my little movie review show where I talk about the films that I've seen recently and tell you whether or not I think they're the droids you're looking for or whether they should be frozen in carbonite and forgotten about forever. So, what are we waiting for? This is Films People Saw Judgment Day edition. That's right, I'm wearing a jacket and no one is safe here. That's because this is my red carpet event where I'm going to be talking about the top 10 movies of 2017 according to no one else but me. So I'm aware most of you are going to disagree with this list, but there's probably a lot of you that agree with my list as well. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Oh wait, before we do get started, because we have missed a lot of time together, that means there are a lot of movies that I've seen that I haven't told you about yet. So welcome to the next segment, Flashpoint. That's right, this is where I'm going to go through these movies as fast as possible in quick jot note form. So you ready? Buckle up, let's go. First movie up on the docket is Snowman, and this total abomination deserves only 1 out of 5 holy hand grenades out of Antioch. The only saving grace is that some of the scenes in this movie were actually really well shot, and the cinematography made some really nice postcard, but overall this movie has less flavor than snow itself, so stay far away. Up next on the docket we've got Flatliners. This dead on arrival movie should never have been made, so I am giving this a perfect 0 out of 5 holy hand grenades of Antioch. You should really rethink your life if you watch this movie. I know I did. I don't know why I saw it. Please help me. Wait, can I get my money back for that? No? Damn it. Anyway, next up on the docket we have Happy Death Day, and I can only say that I'm happy that I don't have to watch this movie again, because I really did not enjoy this movie that was sold as a horror movie but is more of a rom-com, and because it can potentially be enjoyed by some of you as a romantic comedy and not a horror movie, I have to give it 1.5 out of 5 holy hand grenades of Antioch, because it is a really well-made package. The crew did a great job making this movie. For me, though, it just was a very lackluster story that became very predictable. Up next on the docket, I want to talk about the Murder on the Orient Express, and this was more of a murder on the original source material, because the plot in this movie was so predictable, there was zero mystery, zero intrigue, and it's baffling that the best detective in the world in this movie could not figure out what was happening or who the murderer / murderers were, and the way that it was presented left no question to the audience. It was very spoon-fed, and there was zero, like I said, mystery to this movie. So moving on, the next movie that I wanted to talk to you about is Justice League. How have we not talked about Justice League yet? For me, I give this movie 3.5 out of 5 holy hand grenades of Antioch. I really wanted to give it a 4, but the underuse of Steppenwolf for me was just too much of a misstep, and Wolf, to really give this a higher rating, although I did love the banter back and forth between everybody. The whole getting the band back together, or for the first time, was really well done, and I loved Ezra Miller as the Flash, as I was very surprised to be, but very well done job, and I'm actually kind of sad to see Ben Affleck leave as Batman. I really enjoy him as Bruce Wayne. Moving on, I have to talk about Thor Ragnarok. I give this movie 4 out of 5 holy hand grenades of Antioch, simply because this is absolutely hilarious. And I'd given up on the MCU because it just become a stale kind of rehash of everything that they've done before, but Thor Ragnarok was so fresh and so new that I really enjoyed every moment of this movie, and I really want to watch a Hulk and Thor buddy cop movie where it's just them bantering back and forth the whole time. I think that would be phenomenal. Give me that movie, please. So moving on, Blade Runner 2049. How have we not talked about you yet? This movie is mind-bogglingly good. I am a huge fan of the original movie, and I was so worried that they were going to remake or reboot this movie with a sequel that was just going to come out stale and just flop straight on its face right out of the gate. But Denis Villeneuve, thank you so much for taking on this project. You said you didn't want anybody to mess this up, and you certainly did not mess this up. This is what we needed from a sequel. It really has an organic way of bringing Deckard back, so it's not just a forced forced cameo, but the visuals, the story, the acting, everything in this movie is top-notch. So I give Blade Runner 2049 5 out of 5 holy hand grenades of Antioch. That's right. It gets a perfect score. I would give it more if I could, but I can't, because that's how 5 out of 5 works. Anyway, moving on to the last movie I want to talk about here in Flashpoint is, of course, Star Wars The Last Jedi. Now, when I first watched this movie, my initial reaction was, holy sweet baby Luke and Leia, this is a phenomenal masterpiece. I loved almost every moment of it on my initial watch. There was one scene, a little Mary Poppins scene, if you know what I'm talking about, that I was a little unsure of in the movie, but the rest of it I absolutely loved on initial watch. The more I think about it, the more torn I am, because I love that it went in a whole new direction and gave us something completely unique and different while still being similar, but it was very unpredictable, and I loved that, but I also hate that because why, oh why did you have to make me watch that with my own eyes? For those of you who have seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But again, so overall, I love the movie, but I also am very torn about how I feel about the movie. So it gets a solid 4.5 out of 5 holy hand grenades of Antioch, and if we're talking about it this much, it's gotta be good, right? Right? I think so. Anyway, that's Flashpoint. That's all I have to talk about. Alright, so this is going to be the main event, but before we crack the top 10, I actually want to give some honorable mentions to some great films that didn't make my list this year. So let's jump right in. 3 movies that I haven't seen that probably would have made this list would be The Disaster Artist, The Foreigner with Jackie Chan, and The Shape of Water. I'm a big fan of all 3 of those groups, and I really think that had I got around to see them, they would probably change my list completely somehow, and I'd be delivering a different video. That being said, some other movies that I did see that I want to give honorable mentions to is Life, the Ryan Reynolds space movie about aliens that kind of takes a diverge from the Alien universe, which I thought was nice because it was a nice fresh take on it where they were trying to be their own entity. I really enjoyed it. Some great performances and some decent tension in that movie. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I want to give an honorable mention to because I hated the first movie, but I actually really enjoyed this movie. So because it kind of brought me back into the universe, you get an honorable mention for that. Wonder Woman, that's right, Wonder Woman's not making the list this year because as much as I loved it and as much as it was like the best foot forward for DC, I absolutely cannot stand the second half of this movie where it just goes to the typical beam in a sky CGI villain fight, and it's like the bad guy bait and switch where, oh, you thought this was the bad guy the whole time, but it's actually this guy. That really bothered me. So because of that, it can't quite make the top 10 list. Another movie that probably should have made the top 10 list was Spider-Man Homecoming, but as much as I was like very watered down with the Spider-Man universe with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, I hate Andrew Garfield, and those 2 movies were worse than even Spider-Man 3 with the emo, whatever. But because of that, all that, I had never wanted to see another Spider-Man movie again. But Spider-Man Homecoming with Tom Holland and Michael Keaton really rejuvenated my interest into the Spider-Man universe. So I was actually really happy to see that. This movie is fantastic. It's tied for first with Spider-Man 2 with Alfred Molina for being the best Spider-Man, but Tom Holland is by far the best Peter Parker, for sure. So that gets a big nod for that. Thor Ragnarok as well doesn't quite make the list. I'll talk about this again a little later on as to why. But it just, again, wasn't as good as the one superhero movie that I did put on my list. So, the last movie that I want to give a nod to, I actually want to call this the wild card slot because I really wanted to give this number 10, but I gave number 10 to a lesser known movie because I wanted to have a conversation about it, and I want you guys to know this movie and probably check it out if it sounds like something that you'd be interested in. So my wild card slot goes to Dunkirk, the Christopher Nolan war movie. And as I watched this movie, I loved it. The cinematography, just the whole feeling, it really immerses you into every aspect of war, whether it's the dogfights, whether it's the beach fights, whether it's you can't trust your own comrades. Everything about this movie was so well done that I have to give it a huge nod. This is the main event. Welcome to 2017's Top 10 Movies, according to this guy. So yeah, this is it. This is what you've been waiting for. So why wait any longer? Let's get right into it, shall we? Number 10 is the Belko Experiment. That's right. This is a very underdog movie, and the reason why I wanted to put this as number 10 is because not many people know about it, and it's not your typical blockbuster Hollywood movie that people would expect, and I want people to talk about this movie, because I didn't expect much from it, but when I saw it, I absolutely fell in love with it. It's that whole kind of claustrophobic, trapped in one place, everything goes wrong, and you have to fend for yourself, and it really discusses the whole human element, and what would you do if put in this kind of moral dilemma kind of situation, and I really love how they handled it. The acting was great, the action was great, everything about this movie was really enjoyable, and it opened up to a possible sequel universe, which could be really cool as well. So Belko, you get the number 10. Next on the list, we got number 9, comes in with Split. Yes, we have M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong making his triumphant return to a finally an enjoyable film, and that's why you make number 9, because not only was this movie really soundly well done and very entertaining, the twist at the end of connecting it to one of our favorite M. Night universes is absolutely mind-boggling. So because of the enjoyment and the twist and the final return to form for M. Night, you make number 9. Which brings us to number 8. And I didn't want just all to just be action movies and all that stuff. I took everything into account, so this is my kind of animated slot. So number 8, out of all the animated movies that I've seen or heard about, blah, 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 obviously this one goes to the Lego Batman movie. This movie was absolutely amazing, as you don't already know, as not only just an animated movie, but as a Batman movie as well. It has great insight to the character of Batman. It's a whole lot of fun with all the villains. You get Calendar Man and Condiment Man coming back in, so it's all that throwback and retro, but still new, and everything was fantastic. And Zach Galifianakis as the Joker was absolutely hilarious. Doug Benson as Bane. So you get the animated vote for slot number 8, Lego Batman. Next up on the list, number 7, this one might be a little controversial because this is where I'm going to put Star Wars The Last Jedi. That's right, it doesn't breach the top 5 because I have so much, I'm very split, dark side, light side on this movie, like I just talked about. So you get number 7 because, well, you're great, but you're also not great, so that's why you're kind of in the middle slot, kind of fighting for that. So, again, I don't want to talk a whole lot about it, so let's just move on, shall we, Star Wars? Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you again next year. So number 6 brings us to the movie Logan. And this was my superhero slot. This is where I could have put Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, Thor, Guardians. Any of those movies could have taken this slot. But the reason why I put Logan in number 6 is because this is the one movie that I walked out of, the one superhero movie that I walked out and I went, wow, did that just happen? Did I literally just witness that masterpiece? And I know a lot of you are going to complain and say, oh, well, it's ripping off the Old Man Logan comic, and they really didn't do that justice, that storyline. They just kind of went in their whole new way, and they didn't do that justice, which is why a lot of you don't like the movie. But as someone who's never read the Old Man Logan comic, I know I'm sorry. I absolutely love this film because I thought it was a proper send-off for the Hugh Jackman Wolverine character. I loved the kid actors. They were all great. The overall story was just so good that, like I said, when I left this movie, it impacted me in here, and I was blown away by it. So you get the superhero slot, Logan, number 6. This brings us to our top 5. We're cracking the top 5, and at number 5, we get John Wick Part 2. Now, you get number 5 because I'm a huge fan of the first movie, and I thought this was a great continuation of the franchise. It really opened up the world of the John Wick universe, and just all the fight scenes, the death with a pencil, like everything about this movie was exactly what I wanted it to be. It had laughs, it had action, it was hand-to-hand combat. Everything about this movie is so good. That's why you're my top number 5 in the top 10, because action-wise, this is fantastic. So that brings us to number 4, and this was really wanted to give a horror movie a big slot here, and I have to give it to Pennywise the Dancing Clown and the cast and crew of It. You get number 4 because being a remake, being a re-envisionment, and starting off another universe where you're going to get the sequel, this movie blew my mind. The performance of Skarsgård blew my mind. I was a little hesitant because I'm such a huge fan of Tim Curry. The old movie is not as scary, but Tim Curry is terrifying. But Skarsgård in this movie and the whole cast and crew, the kids, again, we get this kind of a feeling of the coming-of-age story, but it's so terrifying, and everything about this movie is so great. That's why it gets number 4 for me. Because being a remake, which I'm not usually a fan of, it really overexceeded my expectations. So number 3 comes to the probably the most perfected horror thriller film of the year, or of the last little while, and that is, of course, Jordan Peele's Get Out. No, don't go away. Please come back. This movie stays number 3 because it is absolutely beautiful to watch. It is super high on tension and just absolutely perfected and very well made. Again, I can't say too much about this movie because I don't want to ruin it for those of you who haven't seen it, but go watch Get Out. It thoroughly deserves number 3 on my top 10 of the year. And that's it. That brings us down to the top 2 movies of the year. Can you guess what they are? Number 2, Blade Runner 2049. That's right, the movie I just gave a perfect 5 out of 5 Holy Hand Grenades of Antioch gets slot number 2. Again, because this was a perfect sequel for me. This is exactly everything that I wanted. It was absolutely beautiful to watch, and it is a mind-provoking, thought-provoking film that really discusses how, in a modern-day world, even though in a future kind of sci-fi sense, we are creating people just to be productive robots to do our bidding so that we can keep the echelon and the form of the society that we've created, and that we really don't matter. We're just another number to give the desired job, or whatever you want to say. I know I'm doing a terrible articulation as to what I'm trying to say there, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. So Blade Runner 2049, you get slot 2. Thank you, Denis Villeneuve. I can't wait to see your next movie. So that brings us to the number 1 movie of the year, according to me. Can you guess where it is yet? It's the only other movie that I've given a perfect 5 out of 5, and that is, of course, Wind River, featuring the best Olsen and Jeremy Renner, and the best performance, Jeremy Renner. The reason why I give this movie such a high ranking and why it gets number 1 is because this movie was so underrated, so under the radar, and I nearly missed it, and I'm so glad I didn't, because this movie, from start to finish, is perfection. This movie has character, this movie has action, this movie has drama, this movie has everything. It is talking about a topical, actual real-life event that is happening today that doesn't get enough attention and is so heartbreaking. The performances from everybody in this movie, not just the main 2 actors, but all the side characters and side actors in this movie are so top-notch. And the last sequence where I'm getting chills and goosebumps just thinking about the imagery in this movie, and it is so bloody good that please go out and watch this movie. Now, be warned, of course, that it is a very mature movie, and there's a lot going on here that may be offensive or uncomfortable for some people to watch, but it is so well done, and it is such an amazing, character-driven movie that it really deserves to be number 1, because this is not a movie, this is a film, and because of that, I thank you. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching this extended episode of FPS in 60 Seconds, the Judgment Day edition. If you want to make this a conversation, leave some comments below and we'll talk about what you agree with, what you disagree with. But please leave the Star Wars spoilers and any spoilers out of the conversation. I don't want to be a part of anything that ruins it. It's still only been out a little while. We got a lot more people to watch it, so please be respectful of that, but let's leave some comments below and let's have a conversation about whether or not you agree with my list or what you would have taken out and replaced, whatnot or what where. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll catch you next year. Happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, and may the Force be with you.